Level 1. The Drugstore Kid. You're 14 years old and you just spent your entire allowance, €11, on a bottle of body spray from the supermarket because a boy in your class said it smelled like something. You don't know what that means yet. You spray it on your neck, your wrists, your shirt, way too much of it, and you walk around school smelling like a cloud that follows you into every room. Nobody tells you that's wrong, you just know people notice you differently now. That's enough. You start paying attention to smell in a way you never did before. Your grandmother's perfume in her hallway, the way your dad's aftershave lingers on his jacket, the specific smell of a bookstore, of rain on hot pavement, of your mother's kitchen at Christmas. You didn't know you were building a vocabulary. You were. Your second bottle is a birthday gift, a big brand cologne in a blue bottle that every boy your age owns. You wear it every single day for a year straight until you can't smell it on yourself anymore. That's your first lesson in scent, the one nobody explains. Your nose stops registering something it's exposed to constantly. You just don't know that's what's happening. You think the bottle went bad. Level 2. The Discovery. You're 16 and you find a website by accident, a forum where strangers write paragraphs about how a fragrance opens with bergamot and dries down into vanilla and musk hours later. You've never read anything like it. These people talk about a 50-milliliter bottle the way other people talk about a film. You spend 3 weeks just reading, not buying anything, absorbing words you've never used. Top notes, heart notes, base notes, sillage, the trail a scent leaves in a room. Longevity, how many hours it survives on skin. You learn that the blue bottle you wore every day for a year is considered a beginner's fragrance by the people on this forum, and something in you feels both embarrassed and hungry to know more. You order your first sample set, 10 small vials for €20, because a full bottle of anything interesting costs more than you've ever spent on a single object. The samples arrive in a padded envelope, and you test one a day on a small square of paper, then on your skin, writing notes in an app because the forum taught you that memory lies, but a written note doesn't. Most of them you don't like. 2 of them you can't stop smelling your own wrist for the rest of the day. You've just learned the second lesson nobody tells you up front, that liking a fragrance and being obsessed with one are 2 completely different feelings, and only one of them is worth chasing. Level 3. The Collector. You're 18 and your shelf has 11 bottles on it, not expensive ones yet, but curated ones, chosen because you tested them properly instead of buying whatever smelled good in the first 10 seconds on a paper strip. You've learned that a fragrance can smell incredible for the first hour and turn into something unpleasant on your specific skin 2 hours later, because skin chemistry changes everything: pH, oil production, even what you ate that day. You buy a fragrance you loved on a friend and it goes sour on you within 30 minutes. You return it, disappointed, and learn the third lesson, that a bottle of liquid isn't the product. The reaction between that liquid and your body is the product, and no 2 people are buying the same thing even when they buy the same bottle. You start decanting, splitting full bottles with strangers online to afford things you couldn't justify buying whole. You send someone your address and €11 for a 5-milliliter portion of a niche fragrance that costs $240 for the full bottle, and you wait, slightly nervous, for a stranger on the internet to actually send it. They do. This becomes normal to you, trading small glass vials with people across the country, sometimes across the continent, all built on a currency of trust that has no institution backing it, just a shared obsession with how things smell. Level 4. The Enthusiast. You're 21 and you can identify a fragrance house from across a room sometimes, not always but often enough that friends start asking you what someone is wearing before they even ask them directly. You've moved past big commercial brands into niche houses, ones that don't advertise on television, ones where a single bottle costs what you used to spend on an entire year of fragrance. You save for 3 months to buy 1 bottle of an oud-based fragrance from a house with a waiting list, and when it finally arrives, you don't wear it for a week because you want the first time to matter. You've learned to read a formula the way some people read a recipe. ISO E Super for that skin-like radiance modern fragrances lean on. Ambroxan for the synthetic amber note that shows up in nearly everything released in the last 15 years, because it's cheap, effective, and everyone uses it, which is exactly why serious collectors start hunting for the fragrances that avoid it. You understand IFRA regulations now, the international body that restricts how much oak moss or certain musks a perfumer is allowed to use, and why a reformulated version of a beloved fragrance from the 90s smells thinner than people remember. It's not nostalgia lying to them, the formula genuinely changed. Level 5. The Known Reviewer. You're 24 and you started posting reviews 18 months ago almost as a joke, filming yourself testing a fragrance and talking through the development for 10 minutes. Your following grew slowly, then not slowly. 40,000 people watch you test things now. Brands started sending you bottles unsolicited, hoping for coverage, and you learned quickly that free product creates a debt you didn't agree to, so you started buying most of what you review yourself, telling your audience clearly which ones were sent to you and which weren't. That distinction matters more than most people realize, and it's the reason your audience trusts what you say. You get invited to a fragrance industry event in another country, your flight and hotel covered, and you sit in a room with perfumers who trained for a decade before they were allowed to build a formula independently. One of them, an older woman who has been composing scents before you were born, asks what you think of her newest release. You give an honest answer instead of a flattering one. She nods slowly and says most people don't have the nose or the courage to do that. You remember that sentence for a long time.
Level 6. The Industry Insider. You're 27, and a mid-sized fragrance house hires you as a fragrance evaluator, someone who sits in a room and assesses formulas before they ever reach a shelf. This is different from reviewing finished products. You're now smelling raw materials, single ingredients in isolation, dozens of variations of the same base formula with one molecule adjusted fractionally, and giving feedback that shapes would eventually get sold to millions of people. Your nose becomes your instrument, in a way it never was as a hobbyist. You train it deliberately now, smelling ingredient after ingredient, blind, testing yourself, building a mental library the way a musician builds an ear for pitch. You learn the business side too, the part nobody romanticizes. A fragrance costs almost nothing to produce, a few euros per bottle in raw liquid, and the price on the shelf reflects packaging, marketing, distribution, and margin far more than it reflects the juice inside. This knowledge changes how you buy things forever. It also makes you appreciate the rare fragrance houses that actually spend on quality ingredients, because now you can tell the difference between a formula built on synthetic shortcuts and one built with real absolutes and natural extracts that cost more per kilogram than gold. Level 7. The Apprentice Perfumer. You're 30 and you've been accepted into a mentorship under a senior perfumer at a fragrance house with a real reputation, the kind whose name gets said with respect in the same forums you read at 16. Your training starts with memorization, hundreds of raw materials, their smell, their strength, how they behave when combined with other materials, which ones clash and which ones amplify each other. Your mentor makes you rebuild a classic formula from scratch using only your memory and your nose, no notes, and when you finally get close after 11 attempts, he tells you that's the job, getting close over and over until close becomes exact. You spend 6 months on a single accord meant to smell like rain on hot stone without using anything literal. No actual mineral extract, just an illusion built from petrichor-adjacent aroma chemicals, layered with precision. You fail constantly. A formula that smells perfect in the small test vial smells completely wrong once it's diluted to the concentration used in an actual finished perfume. You learn that perfumery has almost nothing to do with having good taste and almost everything to do with math. Ratios, dilution percentages, and thousands of hours of trial that most people who love fragrance will never see or understand. Level 8. The Perfumer. You're 34 and you release your first fragrance under your own name, not the house's name, yours. 2 years of formula revisions, 43 versions before the final one, disagreements with the lab about cost per unit, a battle over one ingredient that made the formula more expensive but also genuinely better, a battle you won only because you refused to submit the project without it. The bottle sells out its first production run in 9 days. A reviewer with a following bigger than your own ever was posts an 11-minute breakdown of your formula, correctly identifying half the structure and completely misreading the other half, which secretly delights you because a good formula should have secrets even trained noses can't fully unlock. You get invited back to that same industry event you once attended as a guest, except now you're the one on stage explaining a formula to a room full of newer noses. Level 9, the legacy. You're 41 and you've trained 4 apprentices of your own, one of whom just left to start a fragrance house of their own, which stung for exactly 1 day, before you realized that's precisely what it means for the training to have worked. Your name appears now in the same sentence as perfumers you read about with reverence when you were 19 years old, reading forum posts in bed with 10 sample vials on your desk. You still test fragrances the way you did at 16, on paper first, then on skin, waiting to see what happens 2 hours later when the top notes burn off and the truth of the thing reveals itself. You still write notes because memory still lies, and a written note still doesn't. Your collection now includes over 300 bottles, but the one you reach for most isn't the rarest or the most expensive. It's a cheap blue bottle from a supermarket, the same one you wore every day at 14 until you stopped being able to smell it. You keep a bottle of it in your studio on purpose. Sometimes you spray it just to remember what it felt like before you knew anything, before top notes and dilution ratios and IRFA restrictions, when a smell was just a smell and it made a 14-year-old feel like somebody noticed him. And somewhere right now, a kid is standing in a supermarket aisle with 11 euros in their pocket, picking up a bottle because a friend said it smelled like something. They have no idea what that 11 euros is about to turn into. They'll wear it every day until they can't smell it anymore. They'll think the bottle went bad. It didn't. That's just how it starts.